There's a little change that needs to be made. I made one change after the program was made. I'm going to be giving a persuasive speech, only it's going to be called, Is Reality Real? The rest of the information there is correct. My name is C.B. Misbach, and I'm a philosophy major here at BYU. And I have to tell you, I love my major. And tonight, I want to tell you about one of the more interesting things about my major, one of the more interesting points that I've always been fascinated with. And that is reality, the way you perceive it, actually real? Now, the first thing I want to bring up is, where do we get all the information that we call reality? I would say that most of us here would say it comes from our senses: sight, sound, smell. But who among us hasn't had one of our senses fooled at one time or another? Take a look at this picture, for example. Now there's a group of you in here who are saying, well, clearly this is a picture of a young woman with her head turned to the right. Here is her chin, her nose, her eyelash, her hair, and her hat. But there's another group of you in here who are saying, no, this is a nasty old woman. Here is her huge nose, and her huge gaping mouth, and her shawl going over her head. Simple little picture, and yet at least half of us have to admit that we were deceived. Do you really want to trust something that is so easily fooled? Well, I'm looking at your faces, and I'm saying that some of you do. So, I'm going to move on to my next point. This comes from a man named George Berkeley. Now, what he told us was that our brains, the part that actually does the thinking and the realizing of where we are, it only comes into contact with its own ideas. Think about that for a second. Unless you're prone to shoving objects so far up your nose that they touch your brain actually never comes into contact with anything outside of your body. All it gets are little electrical impulses from other parts of your body. Little electrical impulses that can fire, misfire, fire too little, too weak, too strong. Does that really sound reliable to you? Well, I can see that some of you are still not convinced. You, for example, may be thinking, look, I don't have to shove things up my nose to know they're real. I don't think you do. And frankly, I don't want you shoving things up your nose. So, I go into my last point. And this comes from a man named René Descartes. And he said, okay, maybe I can trust my senses. And maybe my brain is functioning correctly. But how is it that I know I'm not asleep right now? Now, a lot of you are thinking, well, I'm quite sure that I'm not asleep right now because I was asleep last night and I woke up. But that is the only way that you know. I myself have had dreams where I thought I've woken up, only to realize a few minutes later when I actually woke up that that was a dream. It seems that the only time that we actually know when we were dreaming is when we've woken up. So I ask you, what is there to keep it from being the truth that a minute from now you could wake up? Now I'm looking at your faces, and I'm seeing that some of you are still not convinced, and that is all right. You want to believe in reality, you want to say that everything I've been saying here is just stupid and shouldn't have even listened to it. And that is perfectly all right. But I want you to remember that idea, and I want you to hold on to it. When 30 seconds from now, you wake up. 29, 28, thank you. Good job.